Hello everyone, I'm Rosa B. I work at Rosa B Brain Consulting, and I'm a partner coach to Evenbreak. I really want to welcome you all along today's webinar. We're super excited because we're going to be talking about how to make the right career choice and decisions. And I'm looking forward to speaking to Carley and Will about the choices they've made and where they are on their journey. So just a couple of things before we get started. I'd like to also welcome Carol, who's our BSL interpreter. And also we have Heather, who's our captioner, and they're actually supporting us all today. This webinar will be recorded and it will go onto the Hive. You will be recorded. It just will be myself, Will, Carley, and Carl and Heather today. So this will go on to the Hive, and you can access it 24 hours, 7 days a week, should you choose to. One of the big things that we really appreciate and would love for you all to do today is to be interactive. You will hear two really formidable stories, but we also want you to share your stories with us today. So let's get started. So have you ever been stuck in a job, right, that isn't quite you? Have you been trying to make a career change? Well, we know making a career change is very, very far from easy. A career transition is a redesign that often entails rethinking who and what we want to be in our world of work. It's how you want to spend your time and your energy. It's also about how you want to show up. But it's also that inner voice that's sort of whispering to us all that we can be and do much more in our world of work. And so I want to welcome Carley and Will today. Thank you very much for joining us. What I would like to do is, Carley and Will, if you could please introduce yourselves, tell us what you do and why it's important for you to be here today. So Carley, I'm going to start with you. Welcome.
Hi Rosa, thank you for having me today, and hello to everyone who's with us. So my name is Carley, and I am a mum of 3 children, and I'm also neurodivergent. I've got many different abilities, and I'm here today to hopefully help give you some inspiration how I changed my life from the usual rat race work pattern of having to be in a neurotypical world to now managing my own world going forward. So thank you.
Carley, thanks for that. Will, could you please introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you actually do? And why are you here today?
Well, hello everyone. I hope you're doing okay. As I said, my name's Will Zwanenberg. I'm a Brightonian for my sins. Gosh, what do I do? It's not actually a particularly easy question to answer, if only because at this specific point in time, I am transitioning. And that's ultimately the work that I'm doing with Evenbreak. I've been out of work for the best part of a decade now, but what I'm trying to do, sort of at the start of this process, is to actually set myself up as a legal technologist, and I'll talk more about that. I'm sure you're wondering what exactly a legal technologist is. It's not a simple question to answer in a sentence, but my reason for being here today is to basically explain how I've gone from the point of just actually being completely hopeless and not feeling I had any prospects or any opportunities at all, being completely stuck in a rut, to having found something that I'm completely passionate about and that actually suits me down to the ground and will give me the life chances that I crave. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Will. Okay, let's get started. I have lots of questions to ask you both about your world of work and the changes that you're making. You know, Carley, I can remember working with you, and we were working on this thing called a CV. And I hope you don't mind if I share this with everyone, but we both found it challenging we understand the CV can be a barrier to the world of work. It doesn't fully encapsulate who we are, right? It's difficult to get it all done in a bloody A4 piece of paper. And so in that moment, I felt that there was a shift or a turning point for you. Can you please just take us back to that time and share a little bit about that journey? Because I think it taps into the why you decided to make a career change, right?
Yeah, no, exactly that. And for years, so when I left school, I went straight in and into employment. I chucked myself into a job, and whatever I did, I can honestly say I did brilliantly well. I sort of learned it, adapted it, and then thrived on it. And then I'd get bored or I'd get burnt out, which now I understand why. So I was doing these great jobs, but it was just absolutely shattering me. I couldn't understand why I'd be doing something I loved and then I'd be felt really ill. So I was doing this for the last 15 years or so, stopping and starting, doing different career paths, thinking it must be me, I'm bored, I don't know what's going on here. So I got diagnosed a couple of years ago with Asperger's, and my children are also autistic. So I actually sort of went before them. I was suggested to go and get a diagnosis, and I did, and I found out that I had Asperger's, which was a bit of a shock because I don't know. I knew I saw the world very differently, or I knew things were very strange, but it made, for me, it was a massive, massive turning point. It all made sense, and it like this massive relief of a boulder come off me, and I thought, that's why I think that way. That's why I see things this way. So for me, that was the biggest turning point. And then it made me reflect the job I was doing. I was in the travel industry doing business development, but my brain, I kind of knew how to run a company, and I kept going to the managers or the owners of the company, so why are you not doing things like this, or why is this not happening? And they'd be like, well, you're just a person in a box over there, you shouldn't be able to think like this. And it was really, really frustrating me to the point where one day I went to work and it was just so frustrating that I had all these ideas and receptors going off that I just burst into tears, and it all come out, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. So I was very, very lucky to find Rosa, who we went through the CV together. So she's right, Carley, how do you want to get out there? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't really know. I've learned all these different attributes and different scenarios, and I've put myself in so many different places that I don't actually know what I want to do, but I suppose similar line to what I'm doing now. And Rosa was brilliant because she said, right, in a CV now that, we use these words, which for me, also being dyslexic, I say it how it is, and I don't understand long words and the meanings of them. So I'd say, I'm a fun-loving person, but of course you'd have to say I'm this outgoing, it just wasn't me. So the thought of having to then talk to an employer and they read through and say, oh, so you're this, and this, and I'll be going, I don't really know what that is, and I'd look really stupid. So me and Rosa had a couple of sessions together, and it just, all of a sudden I had this moment and thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's got to change. And I just said to Rosa, I can't write a CV. I don't want to put myself out there on a piece of paper trying to explain who I am, because I'm so many different things and I offer so many different attributes and just, possibilities are endless, but you can't say that in this stupid little piece of paper. And I said, so I'm going to go away and think about doing something else. And that's when I thought, I need to go and work for myself. And I had this wonderful moment, which was like, wow, okay, let's stop here. And I went and thought about it.
Fantastic, Carley. And you're right, we don't fit and squeeze into an A4 piece of paper. It almost feels like we're masking on that A4 piece of paper that we're having to squish in or fit into other people's expectations and making ourselves relevant to that job description. And I think you talk really elegantly here, really about potentiality. You knew you had so much potentiality, and you just you were much more than one or two things, right? There's so much more going on with you, and so much more potential, that you wanted to reach. And I love that moment, because that's what we call in careers like a turning point. And out of the frustration, has evolved this beautiful company, which we're going to get into. I also now want to move across to Will, because Will, that Radio 4 program, and by the way, folks, it was a BBC Radio 4 program that Will did a number of weeks ago, where he talks to this exact same thing. So you had very similar frustrations, right, Will?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's really striking just listening to Carley speak there, because I sat and thought, this is all horribly familiar. By all accounts, I have exactly the same frustrations when it comes to writing CVs. I can't encapsulate who I am in a page of A4, but more importantly, I can't adopt the necessary mindset. And I just find the language that you have to employ in order to sell yourself and market yourself and basically reduce yourself to little more than a commodity is something I can't do. And I need to step out of that paradigm, and basically do things myself. But anyway, sorry, do carry on, Rosie. You wanted to ask me a very specific question.
Thank you, Will. I will. Okay. So, we all have a career story, right? It's a narrative about our professional lives that tells us, that tells the listener some highlights about why we've chosen the career we have. And I know, Carley, that, the starting point and turning point for you was the CV. But can you share with our viewers a little bit more about your career journey, the work experiences that you've had to date, and why did you decide to actually make the change?
Yeah, sure. So I've had quite a few different career changes throughout my life so far. So lots have been in travel, because once I left school, I went straight into being an apprentice at a travel agency. So I learnt that job, did it really well, excelled, and then tried different travel sectors. So business travel, I've worked on airlines, just done so many different things to do with travel. And I also went and studied beauty and massage in about 10-15 years ago at college as a night course, because I just wanted to do something else alongside to keep my brain ticking along, so I was nice and refreshed. And the bizarre thing was, obviously I know, after speaking to Rose, and I went, something's got to change. What I did was I took literally a 2-week break, and my husband said to me, right, be a mum now, just be a home, stay at home wife type jobby and look after yourself. And I'm like, can't do that. My brain's far too active. I can't just be at home all day. That's far too boring. I need to do something else. And it's going to sound quite bizarre to some people. It might sound, completely normal to others, but within a couple of days, I had this business idea to start up my own holistic spa business, because I thought, let's take in the bits I already know, so the massage and the beauty, that kind of thing, but actually let's turn it around and use my personality and deliver my personality to other people, so they want to come and buy from me, because I've noticed that all the time I was in sales, people wanted to buy from me, not necessarily the product. So with COVID going on, I thought, well, how nice it'd be to give something back to somebody else and look after them and listen to them. And within, I think, 3 weeks, I thought of a business, thought of a name, did a website, found a location, set it up, boom. And now Holistic Hideout is a trading little spa cabin in a lovely, idyllic countryside area. And yeah, my business is growing daily. It's become with many new challenges, but it's so amazing for me that I can control a business how I want it to be. And if I decide not to work one day, I will diarise that, or I will manage it, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to turn up to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So it's honest, and that's what's working really well for me.
It's really wonderful to hear this, because what you did is you tapped into all of your knowledge, your experiences from many different sectors, and the fabulous skills that you have, those creative skills, though that desire to want to drive something, create something and build something for yourself. And you started to connect all the dots. It was like a light bulb moment, or moments that went off. And you thought, I can use all of my experiences, my transferable skills, my unique strengths and talents, and create something, unique and different for others. And I get to call the shots. Will, can you share with us a little bit more about your career journey? I know that you're double degreed. You
Yes,
were working towards being a lawyer, so studying for the bar. I know that you worked in Finland for a leading telecoms company. So there's a lot there. Share with us a little bit more about that, please.
Okay, what I will try to do is give you the kind of the brief abridged version, because my career trajectory has been unorthodox, to say the least. I started out originally, and this is way back in my 20s, actually wanting to pursue an academic career. I mean, my ambition at that point was to practice, if that's the right word to use, as a research scientist, more specifically as a physicist. It never happened, for the very simple reason that I just couldn't cope with the practical realities of academia. And I also couldn't get funding to do a PhD. So I came out of my first degree, not knowing what I was going to do, but desperately in need of employment because I was skint. And remarkably, I managed to find a job as a software engineer, because it was the only thing that I actually knew anything about or had any practical skills. And I worked initially for an internet service provider in London. That eventually led to working for Nokia in Finland. And it was there that I got, well, let's just say I was the victim of constructive dismissal, because I just didn't fit in with the work culture and the expectations. And I rubbed up with my colleagues, and it was a nasty, very unpleasant experience. I was forced, because I couldn't find any further employment back in Finland, to move back to the UK. And I decided at that point that I wasn't going to work in a freelance capacity either, because I thought, this will involve interfacing with customers and actually selling myself and engaging in the sorts of activities that I find inordinately difficult. And I say that as someone, who is neurodiverse. I just wanted to be left alone to do my own thing. I didn't actually want to be engaged in sales, marketing, and all the other stuff that is kind of prerequisite to being a freelancer. So thereafter, after a long period of time, I took it upon myself, because I thought, do I want to carry on in this career, or do I want to do something different? And if so, what, and how do I get there? I went to see an educational psychologist who has a career dimension. And after having carried out a battery of psychometric tests, to my complete astonishment, because it initially appeared to be the very thing that, just the complete antithesis of my personality, skills, and attributes, she sort of said, have you ever thought about a career in law? More specifically, have you ever thought about training to be a barrister? I practically fell off my chair when she suggested this, because I just thought it was just beyond absurd. But I thought about it a long while and thought it starts to make a lot of sense. I then took myself off as a mature student to study for the bar, succeeded, but never managed to get pupillage, which is the kind of last final obstacle that has to be achieved before you can get your license to practice. That's kind of brought me to the point I am now. But what actually led me to decide to go off at a tangent somewhat and pursue a career in legal tech was, bizarrely, reading a book by a man who is one of my intellectual heroes. His name is Douglas Engelbart, and he describes himself as a futurist. He's by all accounts, he's a polymath. He has a brain the size of a planet. And it seems to have knowledge in just about everything. But what he does is he makes realistic predictions about where in certain industries and certain technologies are going. And he sort of said, law is going to be transformed in the next 20 years, thanks to the introduction of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it will put a lot of lawyers out of work, but that's not a bad thing. And I thought, Jesus, he's right. It never occurred to me. And the epiphany, the light bulb moment for me was thinking, do you know what? I have a background in technology, a passion for it. I mean, you know, I'm the archetypal geek. What I do for fun is write computer code. But I also fortuitously have skills, training, knowledge, and indeed passion in the law. So here is this newly emerging industry that in some sense seeks to marry those two things together. No one's quite sure yet how that's going to work. But where I'm at is thinking, you know, actually I've got exactly the right skills to forge or make my contribution to this. That's why, bizarrely, for the third time, I'm going to undertake yet more training and do a master's in legal tech, just simply to get the requisite technical skills I need. There we are.
Thank you. There's a pattern here, right?
Yeah.
We love patterns. We love connecting dots. We're just connecting up here. Both of you were doing exactly the same thing. You were connecting your experiences, your skills, and going, how can I make this work for me on my terms? How can I create my own rule book, my own world of work? And so that's the pattern here. And I want to share you both. Thank you both for that, because often, you know, as we meander through our world of work and our careers, we're constantly trying to reconfigure or reevaluate who we are in this space and who we actually want to show up as, right? I mean, you know, it's gone are those days where we stay in one job or one career. You've had a few career you know, well, you've been in tech, you studied the bar, now you're going to marry those together. Carley, the same as you, you've been in travel, you know, you worked in other work environments, but it just wasn't sticking. You felt like there was something more that you had to do, and you wanted to, and this is about really reaching your potential, your potentiality, right? Guys, I know that you're all out there, you're a little quiet today. Can you please share your stories? Is this resonating with you? Is this making sense? Do you feel that you're stuck right now? Are you looking to sort of rethink and reevaluate who you are? Please share with us your insights, or what your thoughts and feelings are as Carley and Will are sharing their stories here. Okay, so, you know, let's move on to that thing called values. We all have values. You know, if we want to have a successful or just fulfilling and meaningful career, it's important that we're able to identify who we are, how we want to show up, and what our values are. And certainly what our work values are in our place of work. So our work values, guys, are fundamentally beliefs, values, core principles that are important to us in terms of who we are and how we want to show up. Can be anything from honesty to being of service, to wanting to be successful, wanting to create meaningful and purposeful work, you know, respect for others, being ethical. For me, it's about creating a sense of community, creativity, and I must have challenge in my work. So Carley, what I wanted to do was to ask you, how important was it for you to be identifying what those values are, and also finding purpose or meaning in your work?
Again, so for me, it's I would call a pleaser. I like to make people feel good about themselves. I like to help. I get a real wonderful feeling of seeing somebody else happy. And if I could offer that, which is one of my probably highest strengths, I thought, how am I going to make myself a reflection on somebody else and make them feel great, and really, you know, give them that opportunity. And I can see with many clients that I have come in that I offer like a bit like a talking therapy as well with them. It's not just a spa therapy, so to speak. I'm actually doing this at the moment, the spa part of it, just so I can get my confidence of how I talk to people, and grow. I'm trying in the background. I'm actually growing another business behind me called No More Boundaries, which is also to help adults, children, whatever it might be, you know, who are discovering that they are also neurodivergent, and how to accept and deal with themselves. So what I'm actually doing is trialing out on neurotypical people at the moment. You know, I have crossed a few neurodivergents on the way, but it's a bit like I'm actually doing a bit of a guinea pig trial as well as doing another job, because I'm asking questions, I'm feeding off them. So if I can learn off a neurotypical person how they're feeling and how they can open up, it gives me that extra nudge to help neurodivergent people, where we find everything so much harder. It's harder to talk about our feelings. And my door is, you know, you come as you are. When you come into my place of work, you know, it doesn't matter what you look like, how you're feeling. I am there just to make you feel better. And I feel that that's one of my really strongest values, to connect with anybody, is no one should be this mask of someone they're not. I've spent the last 40 years masking. I'm far too tired to keep doing it now. And I teach this to my children as well. You know, you come as you are. Don't be expected to be anything else. Don't fit into that mold. If you want to be loud and proud and whatever else it might be, then please go and do it. You know, don't ever feel that you should keep yourself under that radar. So I'm helping lots of people moving forward to accept themselves, which is vital in this day and age. So,
I mean, more than ever, we need well-being. Doesn't matter who we are, if we all think differently, neurotypical or neurodiverse, right? You know, we're going to tap into those unique strengths and talents that you have to Carley, probably in our next question. Will, can you share with me the importance of work values? What the heck is that? What does it mean to you? And can you share some of your work values or values with us today?
Sure. In fact, anticipating you were going to ask me this very question, I just before today's webinar started, I wrote down a quote. It was one of my favorite quotes by Tony Attwood, who's something of a guru in the world of neurodiversity. He said, and I quote, "For autistics, values are not opinions. They are what define us, and it's what sets us apart from our neurotypical brethren." I just think that's perfect, because it so brilliantly encapsulates just the kind of different operating system that neurodiverse people employ. For me, you know, in everything I've done, I've sought to be, I know, if you had to sort of put a list of what my values were, they would be wanting quality, efficiency, having a complete abhorrence for, you know, absurdities, or sort of just not doing processes not undertaking processes in the most logical, rational, reasoned manner. And I think that's basically why I have such a passion for tech, because what I seek to do is to try and create new products, new technologies that are as good as they possibly can be. And I don't compromise when it comes to things like delivering on time and on budget, and just giving the client what they actually want. I'm also, in some sense, I mean, I think this is one of the terms you came up with, actually, to describe me as a disruptor. I like to do things differently. You know, in some sense, a core value of mine is to sort of just sit there and say, why? You know, why does it have to be like this? what is the rationale behind it? You know, is it simply convention, or is there actually some sort of logic or something that can be discerned that would justify why it has to be like this? And instead, if I think it stinks, you know, whatever the explanation is, I'll just tear it off and write my own rules. You know?
So for you, the importance, there are big values here. Delivery, quality of delivery.
Yeah.
Right. You do what you say you're going to do.
It does mean I have been known to overextend myself and you know, work way beyond in terms of my number of hours that I really should do. But it's a commitment to actually producing the best, a product that is as good as it possibly can be, you know, and that actually in some sense makes a difference.
Thank you, Will. And we really appreciate that quote. Okay, I want to share some things that are in the chat box, if that's okay. We have David. David, thank you very much for sharing this with us, and I'm going to read it out, folks. Yes, I am stuck. I don't know where I want to go now. I worked in television production for a number of years, having gotten in through a scheme, but had a horrible experience during it. I still want to be in that field, but don't feel people with disabilities are welcome there. And with the nature of short-term contracts, well, we know the world of work changes. We know there are 0-hour contracts. We know it's not the way it used to be many years ago, where you would slot into one job and you stayed in it for 30 years. The world of work is a little more chaotic. It's much more precarious due to new employment laws. You know, so I really feel and empathize with you on that one, David. You said, also, I left school more than 20 years ago. I never felt I could disclose my disabilities and lost job offers because of it. I was only diagnosed with dyslexia and autism a few years ago. Carley, Will, do any of you two want to respond to that? Because you probably would feel this very directly. Carley.
I'll jump in if you like. I wasn't formally diagnosed either until, you know, in relative terms, very late. I'm now 49. I got my diagnosis when I was 38, and you know, that's the point when I actually had someone tell me what it is that accounts for why I have the difficulties I had. And all the way through, you know, my world of work, and going right back to my childhood, you know, I had a sense that there was something different about me. I couldn't actually put my finger on it, and of course I wouldn't do until I got the actual diagnosis. But disclosing is a really, it's a minefield. I choose as a matter of course not to, because I simply can't predict in advance or make any kind of judgment as to how that is going to be perceived. I mean, what I don't want is to be, you know, even within an employer where there's a good degree of tolerance, or there is a kind of ethos of inclusivity. You can't escape the fact of just thinking, you know, this person is a burden rather than an asset. I'd like to believe that actually, paradoxically, precisely because I am autistic, I have skills and attributes that set me apart that could potentially be a real asset to an employer. But more often than not, most employers don't see it like that. What they see is a problem, what they see is cost, what they see is we're going to need to make accommodations for this guy. Even if, you know, the alternative candidate on paper doesn't actually, you know, match up with this guy, the mere fact that we're going to have to make an investment in this guy, and we're going to have to accommodate him, and we're going to have to treat him differently, it's just simpler and easier to recruit the other guy. And you know, it's why I've been out of employment for as long as I have.
Yeah, thank you, Will. And David, does this resonate with you? Is this how you were feeling? You know, we do know that employers are starting to take steps and really try to understand you know, their employees with neurodiversity or disability, and to support them. The focus is, or the key is, to focus on our strengths and skills, which we'll talk to a little later. But Carley, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to David.
Yeah, I totally hear what's being said. And, you know, it just breaks my heart to think that all of us here today, you know, we're in this, there shouldn't be a situation, really. We should have the same right or opportunity as anybody else, regardless of diagnosis, what we look like, whatever it might be. I think one kind of thing I have learned is to be honest with myself and start to love me, which is probably one of the hardest things to do. Again, it's a bit of a wellness journey here, but I think once you start looking at yourself and going, it's okay to be tired, it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but when I do a job, I will be the best person at doing that job, and I will, you know, absolutely own it. And it's a confidence. So if you can start gaining that in yourself, you'll go out to look for work or find something that you think, I can do that. And then you make them believe why you're the best person to do that. And if they don't take you on, do you know what? If that's their loss. But do take that in your stride, that you are the best person for you. And, you know, whatever you might want to do, you might want to just think of your own opportunity. Think, okay, well, I've learned all these experiences. How am I going to get out there? And how can I make a difference? Or I could start my own neurodiverse you know, production company, whatever it might be. You know, there's so many opportunities. It's just taking that grasp and thinking, right, how am I going to do this? And there's so much more support out there. But I'm sure, like you all agree, I've seen quite a few people late diagnosis, and I think the problem is there is no support for adults with a late diagnosis. You're kind of like, oh, there you go, you've got your diagnosis, there's your piece of paper, and off you go. Mm-hmm. Don't have that luxury of like children where they go, oh, okay, well, you've got autism, great, off you go. And then you know, there's systems to fight, but as adults we're just still no better off. And I really hope moving forward that the world is starting to change very gradually, but we are starting to see little light bulb moments where we can move forward and progress.
Thank you, Carley. Here's somebody else. Teresa, thank you. In an AFE college in admin, I have just completed a postgraduate diploma in disability studies, and I'm awaiting results. I'm looking to do some voluntary work in disability charity before returning to work. Have you found voluntary work useful in changing job roles? I'm going to answer that one. Yes, yes, and yes. I have worked with a number of clients who've got their very next job because, and directly in relation to the voluntary work, because the transferable skills and the experiences they've built in that was directly related to that new job they wanted to go into. Just because it's not paid does not mean it is not of value. In fact, it is probably of more value. Will, Carley, who wants to take that one? Carley?
Carley, you go first.
Sorry, Will put his hand up. Sorry. 100%. Yeah, I'm actually constantly helping out, offering my advice and support. So I would do lots of things for charities or events or whatever it might be, because I actually want to gain knowledge as well. It's learning, you know, all I'm doing is feeding my brain all the time, thinking they've done that or they've done this. So then I've got more attributes, and it gives me more confidence that when I do go to a different level, like I say, with my No More Boundaries, I really want to start building that up, but I'm nowhere near confident where I want to be to then go out there and do it yet. So by constantly learning and feeding yourself, great, go out, go and do some stuff. So, you know, you don't have to go and be employed.
Yeah.
Will?
Yeah, I was just going to start by saying I used to take the view, and it was a deeply prejudicial view in reality, that voluntary work was something I wasn't prepared to do, for the simple reason that I tended to regard it as, in essence, a form of exploitation. You know, you're offering your labour, but you're not being paid for it. You don't get any kind of real reward from it, materially speaking. I have subsequently changed my view completely. I mean, I've done a complete volte-face. I think there is an enormous amount of value to be had in doing voluntary work, if only to gain skills and experience and bolster one's self-confidence, because what you need, it seems to me, or we all need, particularly neurodiverse persons, is affirmation. You know, someone telling you that you're of value and that you're doing something that is beneficial and valuable to others, even if, you know, what you're actually doing in practical terms isn't terribly complex or certainly isn't going to change the world. But given the length of time I've been unemployed, what actually has got me out of bed and made me face the day and, you know, do something reasonably productive has been undertaking work for local charity shops. Where I live in Brighton, there are a large number of homeless charities that, you know, that they run on a shoestring. So anyone that turns up and says, I'm willing to offer help in whatever capacity is very welcome. And, you know, it seems a rather trite way of putting it, but that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get from, you know, just, I've done something good, I've done something useful, and I've made a difference, however minor, to someone's life, that comes through doing voluntary work. Just in terms of one's own self-esteem and well-being, one's mental health.
So that's a yes then,
more,
Will.
Yeah, most assuredly.
Will and Carley say, Dave, yes. Now, I know that, Will, you also, because of your legal mind and your knowledge of it, you've actually supported friends who've got themselves into a little bit of a bind. So it's interesting how we can use our experiences, skills and knowledge. It doesn't always have to show up, guys, in the world of work. It can be through voluntary experience. It can be through those interactions you're having with your clients, your friends, the interests, the hobbies that you have, okay? Because we're constantly learning, building new experiences and learning and developing new skills. Just also wanted to share here, Zoe's also saying, yep, diagnosed at 32. I think that may be autism. So Zoe, thank you for sharing that. We have Nick, thanks for coming. I suffered from TBI, which, Nick, if you could please explain to us what TBI is. Thank you. Whilst living in London 8 years ago, walking, talking, and generally living were so impossible for me for many years. But I have been doing a few volunteering positions to gain the skills again to be able to actually go into the workplace. Nick is saying it stands for traumatic brain injury. I lost a third of my brain. Thank you, Nick. You're a formidable force too. We love your passion and your resilience. Okay, so keep the chat channel alive, guys. We really want you to share your stories. Let us know how you're finding the session too, what's sort of exciting you. Let's move on because I'm conscious of time. This is a big one, guys. Knowing your strengths and assets. We all know that we have got unique hidden assets and talents. We all know that there are skills that show up in a position description that we need to meet, right? But we know we've got these other unusual and unique skills and strengths, our creativity skills, our ability to be intuitive, our ability to also futurize. I think you mentioned that earlier, Will, right? So, you know, people who recognize and regularly use their unique strengths and talents can be more successful, they can be more happier, more contented. And when we focus on using our strengths, we experience faster growth personally and professionally. It boosts your self-confidence and we can be an inspiration and a guide for others. And when we're tapping in and using those unique strengths and talents, we really feel that we are reaching our full potential. Carley, tell us a little bit about your unique, I know you've got amazing unique talents and strengths. What are they and how are you using them right now?
I think what I do without even realizing it is I can just sense when somebody is not themselves, and you know, this is a very British thing regardless, but you know, we don't like to admit that we ever need help or are we okay, and we'll just say yes, when we're not. You know, inside we are broken, we are crumbling, we're overwhelmed, whatever it might be, and I think sometimes you just have to have that confidence to say, are you okay? Because you know that someone's not feeling okay. And it's learning a way of not trying to be intrusive, but actually saying, I want to help. Can I lend an ear? You know, do you want a hug? Whatever it might be, you know, what can I do to make you feel better? So having this, I find it quite special. It's lovely. There are times I think, oh God, should I have said that? But I feel the better person for being more open to that person and showing my openness to say, hey, you know, it's not a vulnerability, it's actually a really good thing to get it out there and not hold on to this worry or this stress. If we talked more, if we were open more, we'd feel a lot more enlightened in life, and having that mutual respect for each other, that if you just want to sit there in silence, great. That's one thing I've learned with my treatments, and I say to my clients, you know, you come, and if you want to have a silent treatment, which I want more than anything because I don't want to be talking, I notice they feel more recharged and relaxed as well. So again, it's another wellness reaction for me, that they come away feeling floating on air and happy, and you know, they've had that crucial time out of not having to talk or having to be someone they're not. So yeah.
Sorry, guys, I've got to unmute. So, Will, can you share with us your unique skills and talents? Sorry, just before we do, this is going to link into what somebody's saying in chat. I really got to get this one in. Teresa, you've said, if you get asked about strengths and weaknesses in an interview, how could you acknowledge your weaknesses in a positive manner? I know that Will and Carley have dyslexia, and the assumption is that with dyslexia, there's so much stigma attached to it in terms of who people think we are or are not. And Will, if you could talk to this in your answer, because I know that you've got what I would describe as dyslexic strengths, Teresa. So we're turning and reframing what's considered a weakness into an actual strength. So Will, I'm going to let you just go for it.
Sure, okay. I mean, what's actually said about me, and it, depending on who is making the statement, it's either, you know, a compliment or a criticism, is that I'm basically a stubborn bugger, meaning I'm completely belligerent. By nature, I'm not someone to take no for an answer. And I also tend to identify problems very, very easily, instinctively. I'm not suggesting I'm a perfectionist here, but I actually see it as something, an asset, that a desire to achieve, when you undertake a project or a task, the best possible result, to finding the faults and finding the means to which to solve them. And in the context of being a dyslexic, you know, people actually say to me, how is that actually true? Because, you know, you don't appear to have any difficulty writing prose. In fact, if anything, you're above averagely articulate, and, you know, you write well, but that doesn't actually reflect the fact that it's a tremendous effort for me. I respond to those questions, you know, like, how big a problem is it, by saying, well, look, there are assistive technologies, there are strategies that you can employ. Indeed, I have gone to the effort of thinking this problem through to the nth degree and working out exactly what has to be done to solve it. And so actually, solve perhaps not the right word. Produce quality work that is of the requisite quality. I use voice transcription software. I get other people to proofread. What I actually do, I carry around with me all the time a notebook, and I mind map. I mean, because I'm a visual kinesthete, which means that I think in terms of images and pictures. And those images can often be very, very elaborate. They're far more descriptive often, far more meaningful to the people I'm trying to communicate with, than actually trying to write some rather boring, slightly arid document. And I said, look, that's what I'm talking about. This is the idea. Here, look at this diagram, you know. And for a lot of people in those situations, it's an epiphany. And what they don't want is me to write some boring, lengthy treatise on the subject. There are solutions there. You just have to be determined to find them. And because neurodiversity is becoming much, much better understood, there are people developing technologies to help you use it, to help you overcome these difficulties.
That's a wonderful example of a reframe, right?
Yeah.
You know, okay, so I'm similar. I'm a very visual individual and I like diagrams. I don't like copious amounts of information. And so you got to play to your strengths. If your strength is a visualizer, use that in your work, right, Teresa? I mean, there's a great webinar too that talks about why you're a premium candidate, not in spite of, but actually because of your disability. And so I would welcome or ask you to check that out, because you can be using your disability within your interview, because we've had to be much more creative. We're problem solvers. We've had more barriers to overcome, more mountains to climb. But you want to make sure that you're using that strength in a way that's relevant to the position description, right? Especially if you're relating it to your disability. So we have to be very, very strategic about it. But I would ask you to kind of check that out, because it's got some fabulous pieces of strategy and tools in there to support, especially on the area when you're having to talk about perceived weaknesses, right? Okay, we're going to move on because I'm conscious of time. I want to talk about why allyship, mentorship, peer or heroes can help us get a breakthrough. Carley, I'm going to go to you and ask you, who's your hero, or what mentor or individual really helped you get the breakthrough, and how did they help you?
Yeah, I'd probably actually say it was a really, really good friend. We were just having drinks one night at her house, and I still did some sort of beauty treatments. I said, "Oh, let me tint your eyelashes," because she had this beautiful auburny hair, but with quite light eyelashes. And I thought, "Oh, let me just give them a tint," because I like to think I can, see people's beauty naturally enhanced. And I dyed her eyelashes, and she's just like, "Oh my God." She was just so over, like, "Oh, I look amazing." I'm like, "Oh, you're still you just got a color." That's it. It's like so simple. But she said, "The way that you've just made me feel is a real inspiration." And she just gave me such a massive boost to sort of go, "Well, Carley, you make people feel really good about themselves, either talking to them or using beauty products, whatever it might be, but you make someone feel great, and that's what's so important." So it was definitely, my friend that gave me the real push, but it was hearing lots of different people like Rosa I've spoken to in the past, confidence building the background that actually you are good enough, you can do this. And you've got to start believing it and going, "Well, okay, I'm not here just on a whim. There obviously has got to be something I'm doing. So I've just got to get out there and do something." So it just gave me that push that I needed to be where I am now.
Fantastic. John here is sharing with us, one of my strengths with having dyslexia is that I am more succinct and I get to the point. With you on that one, John. As I struggle with reading, I also tend to write less. I tend to, you've got write less and write better. Is it read less or write less? I'm not too sure what you're saying there, John, but this really speaks to, again, dyslexia strengths. Over to you, Will. Who's been a pivotal part in helping you transform or change? Is it a peer? Is it an everyday person? Or do you have a hero that you want to share with us?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there is one particular chap, his name's Douglas Engelbart. He's a futurist, he's just an Australian, and he's a bit of a polymath. I've never actually met him. I've simply read his books, and I've seen his innumerable YouTube videos where he talks about any number of things. But it was just, as I say, watch it or reading a book where he sort of said, the world of law will be unrecognizable in 20 years' time from the state of play now, and here's why. And I sort of thought, yeah, I want to be part of that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I suppose, rather bizarrely, the other person who's a heroine as opposed to a hero is Baroness Hale, of all people. She is now the president of the Supreme Court. This goes back to the time when I was at bar school, because quite regularly I would have to meet with senior law lords and justices of the peace. and I had to do bar training where I had to present complex legal argument. And what she said to me, and I put it down, just thinking of it resonated reading John's posting. She said, the great beauty about your legal submissions, and that's the term that's used when you stand in front of a lectern and you rabbit on about some complex, slightly arcane question of law, is that you are incredibly precise and incredibly succinct in your delivery. You get straight to the point. You don't embellish it with waffle, you don't embellish it with hyperbole or just unnecessary verbiage. You tell the judge what the issue is and what it is she needs to do in order to resolve the remedy, resolve the wrongdoing rather. And so it's just thinking, okay, that's the strength that I have. This is what I'm passionate about. Go for it. Yeah.
Fantastic. John's just back to us and replied. So he said, one of my strengths with dyslexia is that I am more succinct, like Will, and get to the point. So I write less, but what I write is succinct. Sounds counter, he said, I don't have to read as much of even of my own writing. It sounds counterintuitive though. We get what you're saying, John. Thank you for sharing that. We are very close to the end, guys. We've got about a minute or two. So, but we can still squeeze in a lot of content in that minute, right? Carley and Will, I want you to share your tips, your advice for people that are wanting to make that career change, whether it's into another job or industry or changing their work type, i.e. going from employed to self-employed. Carley, what's your top 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 tips? Over to you.
I won't go that far. I think just reflect on ask a question, what do I want out of life? You get one go at life, and what was it you'd like to do? So forget what you've done in the past, forget what you think you should be doing, forget what you think you have done. What would you like to do? And what would really excite you to go on a brand new journey where you could get really excited and just do something you want to do? So I would just think, go out there and be you and not be something you're expected to be.
Thank you. Beautiful, simple advice. Reflection, be you and do what it is that you feel that you would like, right? Not having to feel you've got to conform into a work type or work person. Will, what's your tips?
We're meant to be creative, right? Above averagely so. We're also problem solvers. So I would say use that creativity. Find a solution. There is one out there. And don't take no for an answer, or don't assume that because the kind of standard practices and methodologies of the world of work, which is kind of horrifying to most neurodiverse people, have to be barriers. If there's a wall, rather than just assume you've got to climb over it, or break the wall apart, dig underneath it, find a ladder, whatever it is, there is a solution out there. You just have to actually think laterally, and then you have to find the person who will help you build the ladder, help you dig the tunnel. It can be found. So
thank you, Will. Keep going. You know what? I think you guys must have read my mind. That must be another fabulous skill that you have, because here's what I'm saying too. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to be get clear on the what and why. So today we heard Carley Mills why they wanted to change. It was actually born out of frustration and pain. And listen to that pain and use it intuitively, because you can make the change. Build allyship. It's quite clear it's important that we're not lone islands and that there are people that can support us. I know that, Will, you're collaborating closely with another Evenbreak client. You're doing an exchange of sorts. You're sharing skills through working with each other, doing some coaching on Scrum. I'm not too sure if Charles is out there, but find your ally. There are people out there who do want to help you. Here's a quote: alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And that's from Helen Keller. Get started and act it out. We can all be in analysis paralysis. You'll make lots of mistakes and have failure along the way, but you'll learn from your failure, right? Will and Carley are prime examples of that. And they are keep going. They're busting on through, smashing through. Rebrand yourself and your skills. It's all transferable. So we have these wonderful transferable skills. We can create a new canvas, a new painting of who we want to be and how we want to show up in our world of work. Okay, so that's taken us to the end. Guys, I want to thank you all very much. We're having people here saying, thank you very much, Rosa, Carley, and Will. Thank you, Nick. Abby is saying, thank you for sharing your amazing stories and being so positive and inspiring. You are welcome, Ali. Zoe, I know that you had some questions you wanted to ask about not having work history and how we build that. I think I'll be talking to you a little bit later on that. So we're getting Andre, Teresa, Leslie saying thank you, and thank you again. Guys, we've run out of time, and I wanted to say thank you all for joining us here today. We appreciate your own stories. We hope you have got some inspiration from this. I want to thank Carley and Will for showing up today and sharing their experiences about their world of work and how they made the career change and shift. It's really important to hear other people's stories because we can learn from them. Carol and Heather for showing up today, and Toby is ever in the background helping us out. Thank you all for joining. This recording will go onto the Hive. There's a survey that's going to come straight after this. We really appreciate if you could give us 2 minutes and actually complete that. Okay, that's it, guys. Thanks for coming. Over and out. Bye. Bye.